Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Horror Room. I'm Travis Bruce, and today I have a special guest with us today. Today, I have my man, Jeff Hayes. He is the co-creator and content producer for the first and official Sleepaway Camp website. Also, he has a book out right now that's called Sleepaway Camp, Making the Movie and Reigniting Campfire. Jeff, welcome to the Horror Room.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure, man. It's a pleasure. So tell me a little bit about the website. So you're the co-creator and the co-producer of the first Sleepaway Camp website.
Yeah. Back in, I think it was 1998, when people were just starting to, look at websites and stuff online, I had found a message forum for horror movie messages where you could, write back and forth with fans about various horror movies. And it was a Friday the 13th message board. I was writing about this movie called Sleepaway Camp. And it turned out that somebody else was also writing and reading about Sleepaway Camp, and his name was John Kleiser, and he lived in Australia, and we were talking back and forth about this movie that we loved so much, and so the two of us ended out, just corresponding, and eventually decided to make a website together so that we could kind of open up the whole Sleepaway Camp thing online for everybody.
Yeah, and for any of my audience who haven't seen Sleepaway Camp or never heard Sleepaway Camp, it was a iconic slasher horror movie back in the 80s, and it had and is most famous for its revealing ending. The great Felissa Rose plays the main character, and I think it's had like what 4 or 5 sequels.
Well, technically, there's three official sequels, and then there was another one that they produced and put out independently called Sleepaway Camp: The Survivor. I don't know much about it. That was something that they put out independently back in like 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah, because Felissa Rose played Angela, right? That's the name.
Yes. Yep.
Yes,
In the first
she
movie.
played Angela in the first movie, and then I believe it's Bruce Springsteen. Is it his sister or cousin?
Yep. It's his sister.
It's his
Pam.
sister, and yes, Pam. She plays she takes the role of Angela in the sequels.
Yep. Well, in 2 and 3. And then
2 and 3,
in
yes.
Return to Sleepaway Camp. Yep. Return to Sleepaway Camp, Felissa Rose comes back to the role, although she isn't playing exactly the same role. In the first movie, technically she played Peter. So in Return to Sleepaway Camp, she actually plays Angela. So yeah,
Yes.
that's a little bit of trivia there.
And one thing about Sleepaway Camp, I grew up in the 80s, and I remember watching that. It was actually my older sister like favorite horror movie. I think it still might be. And
All
one
right.
thing I remember about that movie was it was gory as hell, and they actually cast actual teenagers, which
Yes.
which most horror movies even today don't do.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that makes it stand out is for the movies that came out at the time that were slasher movies, they had 20 somethings and sometimes even 30 somethings playing
Yeah.
teenagers. But this movie actually had teenagers playing teenagers and swearing and
Yes,
in the middle of this like really gory movie. So it was pretty bold, definitely for its time.
it was. so so what age were you the first time you seen Sleepaway Camp?
I was actually 11.
11. Okay. And what
Yep.
did you think? Especially, I mean, the movie and also that iconic ending.
It never left my mind. Like, I was 11 years old. It was on HBO one night, and it was on like so late. It was like 2 or 3 in the morning that I had to set the timer on the VCR so that I could record it and watch it the next day.
Mhm.
And I just remember like when I got to the end and just being like, "Whoa!" Like like, "Oh my God, you can't leave me hanging like this. I gotta know what happens next."
Uh-huh. It was
Yeah.
definitely a
So,
what the fuck moment.
oh my God, yeah. It just
Yeah, I
had to
mean,
find out.
and like Sleepaway Camp is one of the so like Felissa Rose, she definitely is out there just like you and others. She's keeping that Sleepaway Camp memory alive. She's at a lot of conventions, and she's actually starring in a lot of movies recently. And because a lot of, I would say, so I was born in '82, so I'm saying people in the '90s, kids grew up in the '90s, they don't know about Sleepaway Camp. It's they know about the Friday the 13th, they know about the Nightmare on Elm Streets and the Halloweens, but Sleepaway Camp was always one of those iconic horror movies that kind of flew under the radar.
Yeah, for a while. I mean, definitely. It wasn't mainstream like Friday the 13th, The Nightmare on Elm Street, Halloween, or any of those. And it grew its following, like really after its theatrical premiere, and it did well in its theatrical premiere. But it really wasn't until it came out on home video and then people got to see it on cable and it just like slowly started spreading. And little by little, people were learning about this movie and hearing about this crazy ending and like, oh, if you like Friday the 13th, this summer camp slasher movie, you've got to see Sleepaway Camp. And
Yes.
so, yeah, it took a little longer, I think, to build the fan base than something like Friday the 13th. But now it's like really popular. A lot of people know about it, and you go to the conventions, and everybody's talking about Sleepaway Camp.
Hmm. It's definitely have a resurgence. Now, you also made but let me talk about the website also too. Felissa Rose was, she actually helped in the resurgence of the website.
Yeah, I tracked her down in, I want to say it was 98 or 99. And this was before anybody knew what she was doing or where she was or anything. And we made plans to get together out in New York where she was living and to do a big multimedia interview for the website. And this was going to kind of like relaunch her back into the world of, acting in horror movies. And she was acting. She was doing like off-Broadway dinner theater type of stuff, but she wasn't really doing any movies. And so then we put this interview out with her on the website and, suddenly all these independent filmmakers and everything wanted to get in touch with her and, were interested in wondering if she would star in their movies. And, one thing just kept leading to another and to another.
Yes. It's hard not to run into an independent horror movie that she's not in.
That's for sure.
Yes. She is in, because I actually did a red carpet screening of one, and she was in that one with Macabre Mountain. And I was like, Felissa Rose is in every independent movie now. Horror movie.
Yeah, it's true. I even made one and she was in it.
Really?
Yeah. A few years back, we did a little movie about a serial killer, and she played his therapist. And we filmed that when she was out in New York one weekend. And yeah, she had done a short independent film that I had been working on back in like 2002 as well, called Grandma's Secret Recipe. And that premiered in Chicago right before Sleepaway Camp was shown uncut on 35 millimeter for like the first time in many, many years.
Mm-hmm.
So that was really cool.
And I hear that she's amazing to work with.
Oh yeah, she definitely, she's zones into the character, and you give her lines and you tell her how you want it done, and she give it to you.
I guess there's not anything. I'm guessing there's worse things to be known for than Sleepaway Camp. That's what. I don't know how old she was when she was in that movie, but even today, that's who she is. She's Angela from Sleepaway Camp, yeah. The original one.
Yeah, no, she was 13 when she made it, and yeah, you're right. Her whole life really is, being Angela and going to conventions and meeting fans because she was in Sleepaway Camp, and
yes,
that's the way it goes.
So tell us a little about it. By the way, I've had a chance to read your book. It's an amazing book. But to tell my audience a little bit about the book.
Sure. So I never really thought of writing a book because I had the website, and every time I wanted to put up some sort of new information about Sleepaway Camp, I kind of felt like, I got the website and I can put it there and, keep the fans updated on, different Sleepaway Camp happenings. because I still put together screenings, and I've been involved in doing a screening at the actual location where the first movie was made in upstate New York. And so, yeah, I've been involved with doing all sorts of like things like that. And okay, wait a minute. What am I supposed to? I think I lost track of what I was saying.
About the book.
About okay, so
yeah,
how the book came about. Right. I'm sorry. Okay, so so 1984 Publishing got in contact with me because they had actually followed the website since way back when it first came out in the late 90s. And they had kind of followed my story about all the different things that I had done. And, they wanted to know if I'd be interested in writing about that and putting together a fun sleepaway camp book for all the fans. And so we went back and forth with different ideas of what could be in it and what it would be about. And, we agreed on everything. And then I went to town writing the book. And yeah, I one thing that I did that I wanted to do was I actually went out and found other people that I hadn't talked to yet that were involved in the movies. Because, if I'm going to do something else with Sleepaway Camp, I want new stuff. I want new content. And so I found the production designer, and I found the guy who was responsible for mechanical effects. And these guys were so integral to the behind the scenes stuff. I mean, they planned a lot of this stuff and how certain effects were going to be achieved. And, so for the first time, I kind of got to hear some anecdotes of putting those scenes together and how they were achieved by the actual people who put those effects in place. And so I was able to share that with the fans. And, that's kind of like the big revelation that comes out of this book is you learn various on-set stories and how certain effects and stuff were done that hasn't been told yet. And so when you read this book, you get to learn how a lot of that stuff happened. And I've interviewed almost everybody involved with Sleepaway Camp over the past 25 years. And I put that all into the book, a little bit of everybody talking about, what it was like making the movie, from the original interviews with the website to like the newest ones that I did with the production people, through today. So yeah, it's a journey about making the movie, and what happened after the movie was made and how the movie was kind of reignited and then went off again. And, and all these other super cool things happened.
Yeah. I mean, and the movie definitely got criticism,
Oh,
It definitely got criticism.
Yeah, like if you were looking at reviews at the time and you read 20 reviews, 19 of those reviews were bad. And the 20th one was half bad.
Yes.
And so a lot of people wonder, how did a movie that had such it was reviewed so horribly by the critics, how did something like that grow into what it is today? And, we kind of go on the story. We tell the story of, how it accumulated this giant fan base. And, a lot of it had to do with what was going on in Robert Hiltzick's mind and telling a story in a unique way that was it was told in a different vibe than most horror movies. So it was really stand out, and it's just it became what it became.
And since the actors and actresses were kids, and there was a lot of underlining sexual themes in that movie. Mm-hmm. It definitely crossed some boundaries that that some people didn't take care of. I mean, didn't like. They definitely turned them off.
Yeah, especially at that time, things like that just weren't happening in horror movies. Horror movies with kids is the stars.
Yes.
But yeah, like you said, it dealt with some, pedophilia or, or the issue of, a boy pretending to be a girl, These are things that people didn't talk about, and you know, Robert Hiltzik was bold enough to throw them in everybody's face with this movie.
I mean, I remember even like some of the girls would talk about Angela being flat chested. So it was just like in your face. It was these how kids actually talk, and these were actual kids. And I mean, I think one of the things that I've always wondered, like, you watch some of the Friday the 13th movie, and you see teenagers, and they look like they're 45 years old. They look like they have a mortgage or something. And like,
Yep.
I'm like, well, why can't they ever get? I understand what Sleepaway Camp did is something you probably can't do now, and you probably couldn't do that afterwards. What parents are going to allow their kids to be in a scenario like that. But at the same time, you can't find actors and actresses that look like they're teenagers, not 35 years old.
Yeah. No. I mean, I love the Friday the 13th, and I love all of those movies. But they really, their teenagers were 20 somethings, and there was just something. I don't want to say off about that, but it was just something that made it not as relatable to a teenager as actually seeing actual teenagers playing the parts.
Exactly. Now, what was your favorite kill in all of the Sleepaway?
Wow. I say in the first one, I say my favorite kill was the one at the end where Paul's head comes rolling out of Angela's lap. And that's not so much for the kill, but it has more to do with the impact. Like, Paul is, the lovable friend of everybody, and he's like the last person you expect to see get killed. And so I think that one was just so impactful. That's why I say that one is my favorite from the first movie. The second one, without question, was when Allie got drowned in the outhouse toilet.
Yes.
That was the perfect example of comeuppance in a horror movie in the 80s. You don't get much better than that.
I mean, that one even made me a little squeamish.
Yeah, how could it not?
Yes.
And in the third one, I really liked the flagpole. I think that was a really kind of fun and witty idea, although it did get cut. So when you see it in the movie, she comes down, hits the ground, and it cuts right to the next scene. But in fact, they actually did shoot a longer version where you saw like the head hit the ground, and they actually used pig brains, and they splattered all over the place. And I believe it's on the Blu-ray, the Scream Factory Blu-ray for Part 3. You can see a work print of the movie, and it actually shows how that scene actually, fully played out. And it's a little bit gorier for sure.
Wow.
And in Return to Sleepaway Camp, that my favorite in that one, wow, it maybe was the bunk bed kill, because I think that was pretty unique. When the killer jumps on the bed, and then you find out there's nails all hidden under the bed, and boom, I thought that was one of Robert's super creative ones on that one.
Now, okay, so I'm trying to think. Did I see Return? Which one am I thinking of? It's an annoying kid who's being bullied, but he's a fucking asshole. Which one is that?
That's the one.
That's Return. Okay, I fucking hated it. I fucking hated that one. Is he not the most annoying character in any horror movie ever?
That's the problem. It's like over the years, that's what I've heard from the fan base, is that they didn't like the fact that they had to spend most of the movie with somebody like that being a main character, just because the character was so annoying. And the guy that played him, Michael Gibney, he was actually, he was fine. He was a good kid. He wasn't anything like Alan, but the character was really, he was amped up in terms of how aggravating he was supposed to be, I think. And
because I think they were trying to make him to be like, make you feel sorry for him, like he was being bullied, but he was just such an unlikable character that you're like, He kind of deserves this.
That's what, Robert didn't want to do the same thing. He didn't want another character that you really start to like and don't want to see anything bad happen to this character, because that would be copying Angela in her character arc again. So he wanted to do something like really different, and he did. He did something really different with Alan.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, not a lot of people like the characterization. But I think the movie was still fun for what it is. It's a pretty fast summer camp slasher movie with some really innovative murder sequences that unfortunately didn't get finished the way they were supposed to, because some of the funding got ripped out, and so some of the CGI stuff that was supposed to have really looked super cool, and I saw the actual computerized renderings and stuff of some of the scenes and how they were supposed to end out looking, and it's unfortunate that like the scene with Vincent Pastore gets his insides eaten up by the rats, and that just looks it looked cartoonish, whereas if it had turned out the way Robert had intended it to, it was really supposed to look really gruesome and realistic. So yeah, you got to watch out when you make a movie. I was just going to say, you got to watch out when you make a movie. Make sure that nobody can pull the budget out on you, because it's going to just cause problems.
Because it's pretty interesting. They filmed part 2 and part 3 back to back.
Yep.
And like it was literally as soon as they wrapped up part 2, they went straight into part 3.
Yeah, I think it was just like a matter of a week or something. They just reset and went right into the third one. Yep.
Now, aren't you surprised? I mean, listen, they have rebooted pretty much everything. I mean, Black Christmas, Nightmare on Elm Street, Halloween, everything has gotten a reboot. How come Sleepaway hasn't gotten a modern day big budget reboot?
That's part of the problem. The word you just said right there, big budget. Robert has written a reboot, and not just because I'm a super fan. I can honestly tell you it's a really, really good story, and it deals with today's issues, and it takes all the things you love about Sleepaway Camp and it updates it. And, there's a lot of the characters that are the same. Obviously, they'd have to be played by different people, teenagers playing teenagers. But yeah, he's written a really good story, and it's just a matter of, nailing down a company that wants to do it with an appropriate budget. He's gotten some offers, but a lot of people want to make it too low budget, and he's got some really big ideas. And it's like, if he's going to do Sleepaway Camp again, he doesn't want to do it in a super low budget way. It's like, let's do what we were always supposed to be able to do, and make this, put this movie on a bigger scale, and make the effects things that the fans will be talking about for decades, like they do about the effects from the first movie 40 years ago. But yeah, I think it's time. It's definitely time for a reboot, and maybe a good company will be watching this interview, and if you are, get in touch with me and tell me you want to put a budget in, and we'll make one hell of a Sleepaway Camp reboot.
Yes, because there's been horror movies who have gotten reboots, big budget reboots, that no one was asking for it. Yeah,
and like you said, like Black Christmas and some of these other ones, and
who the fuck was asking for that?
Yeah, and they were horrible. Occasionally you'll get one that's good. Like I thought the Hills Have Eyes reboot was good. And maybe The Last House on the Left, for the most part, was a pretty good reboot. But
yeah, that was good. Then
you get some of these other ones like April Fool's Day, and I mean, even the Friday the 13th reboot, I thought was bad. I mean, they could have done so much.
I actually like that one. I actually like that. That's like, I think that's up there as one of my favorite reboots. I actually see, but here's the thing here's the crazy part. I tell people this all the time. I'm not a huge Friday the 13th fan. Like I respect Jason as an iconic horror character. He's one of the greats. But the Friday the 13th, if there's no way I could sit and binge watch those movies back to back to back because they're pretty much the same movie except for part 4, part 6. You know, for the most part, they're kind of the same movie, the same boring characters. I mean, you're pretty much going to see how differently is Jason going to kill somebody, pretty much. But it's pretty much the same story over and over again. And I thought the reboot was something fresh and it was something new, and it gave Jason more of a personality.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, it's a lot of like what you just said. I was a big fan of those movies growing up as a kid, and I watched them faithfully. And then going and seeing this reboot, it was like, they got Jason taking hostages, and I was just like, oh my god, like, this stuff is crazy. And to me, that was just too much. But I can see maybe like if you're not the biggest fan to go in with, maybe you definitely take more out of it.
Yes. But I mean, Sleepaway Camp, I've been waiting for it. I'm like, okay, they're definitely going to make a Sleepaway Camp reboot soon, and I've been waiting and waiting. I've seen Pet Cemetery reboots come out that no one's asking for, and I've seen I've seen Children of Corn reboots that no one's asked for, and Wrong Turn, and I've seen all of these reboots that no one's asking for. Even the Child's Play reboot, no one asked for that. And I'm like, I see all of these big budget reboots coming out that no one's asking for. What about Sleepaway Camp? Why is that getting passed?
It makes you wonder. Yeah, no, again, it has a lot to do with, settling on an appropriate budget. Because, what you don't want to do is you just remake the movie so much like it was the first time around.
Yes.
And again, with a super small budget, really it's time to like make it bigger and do all the big things with Sleepaway Camp that that could be done with it. And just like you, I think there's a ton of people that want it. So hopefully I don't know, Paramount Pictures or somebody will come along and say, hey, Sleepaway Camp, yeah, that's right, let's finally do it.
I mean, they just tossed millions and millions of dollars in the trash with that fucking Exorcist reboot that once again no one fucking asked for. No one fucking asked for that, and it was a piece of shit. Why not put that into a Sleepaway Camp? Just make sense.
It's like, The Exorcist is, that came out and made like tons of money, and it was big at the theater. It was big on home video. It was big on everything about it was big. So, they'll keep putting money into movies like that. Whereas, Sleepaway Camp was, a low budget slasher when it came out. And for some reason, people keep having it in their heads that it has to be a low budget slasher. When in fact, a big budget slasher is what it should be right now. I mean, exactly. It doesn't have to be extraordinarily big. Just
a couple million.
Let us make this movie without having anything holding us back from doing what we really want to do.
Exactly. I mean, if somebody asks me right now, Travis, what are 2 reboots? And I'm not really a reboot fan, but so 2 classic reboots. Sleepaway Camp is one of them, and The Prowler. I would love to see both of those movies updated. I would. I mean, because they were such great cult classic horror movies. Practical effects, great characters, great stories. And the third one, I would have said a couple years ago, 10, 15 years ago, was The Hitcher. And then they rebooted that, and that was a piece of shit. So,
that's right. Platinum Doom.
Oh my goodness. I'm like, but I think you can do, especially the year 2024 with transgender and, the anti-bullying, and it's time for a Sleepaway Camp.
You're right.
It's time. This is the time right now.
I totally agree. I mean, with all the issues happening in the world, and put out a movie that's going to tackle all those issues and get some come up with.
Too.
Yeah. Get some comeuppance for some people who deserve it.
Exactly. I mean, we got pedophiles and fucking running rampant. Let's kill some pedophiles in movies. I'm shocked that horror movies do not kill more child molesters and pedophiles. I mean, they definitely, and that's something they did in the 80s. Those freaks would get killed.
Maybe they feel like they kind of wore that market out, I guess. But, you know, there'll be more of that in the Sleepaway Camp reboot.
Yes, we need a Sleepaway Camp reboot. I'm being dead serious right now. If there was an Indiegogo or crowdfunding for a Sleepaway Camp reboot with a proper budget, I would definitely donate to that. I would love to see, and I think a lot of people would. Yes, I think Sleepaway Camp it's past due. It's past due. Every other low budget horror movie, Toxic Avenger, which I love, Toxic Avenger, that is getting a reboot. Has a reboot. Like, it's time for Sleepaway Camp. It really is.
You're right. And it's got some big names in it too, I believe.
Yes, and I heard it's amazing. I heard it was amazing.
I definitely look forward to checking that out. But yeah, if that can happen, you know, come on.
Now, who would you cast as? Okay, listen, Jeff, you're a filmmaker. You're making the Sleepaway reboot. You could cast any actress as Angela. Who would it be? Like, who's a modern day actress that you like, you know, fit right into this fucking role?
I think right now, personally, my answer would have to be Jenna Ortega. She's kind of like the it girl right now, and she's almost. I can picture her making that face at the end.
Yes.
So yeah, if it had to be right now, I'd probably go with her.
Yes, I agree, and she's not afraid of being in horror. So
yeah, you know, I'm looking forward to seeing her in Beetlejuice 2 this fall.
Yes,
that should be pretty fun.
And I just did a live interview. We're talking about X, the X series. She played a unlikable character in the movie X. Did a great job.
That was one of I'd say over the past like 5 years, that was one of the best horror movies I've seen. Like,
really is.
I watched so many of them, but I had such a good time with that movie. It really felt like a throwback to that time period where, you know, like Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yes.
You know, it had that vibe to it, and it was a lot of fun. And you know, that was one that I couldn't wait to revisit when it came out again. You know, well after its theatrical release, which I had seen twice. I was looking forward to seeing it again a third time when it came out on Blu-ray.
Mm-hmm. And to follow that up with Pearl, which I saw in the theaters as well.
Yep.
It was like, I mean, it was just a perfect mix, and I'm so excited to see Maxine.
Yeah, definitely. Can't wait to see what they do with that one.
Exactly. Now, Jeff, where can everyone find you, my friend?
Well, you can find me on the official Sleepaway Camp website, sleepawaycampmovies.com. And, you know, basically, you know, you can find me like on social media, on like Instagram and Facebook, things like that.
and you can get the book on Amazon.
Yes, the book's available at Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, and 1984publishing.com, the publisher, who also put out a vinyl soundtrack for the movie, for the pop songs that were in the movie by Frankie Vinci. Mm-hmm. So, you know, the Angela theme, you know, you can now get that on a vinyl record through 1983 Publishing. And
that's badass.
If you're a fan of that end theme song, which most people who are fans of the movie are, it's a fun little keepsake.
Yes. Well, Jeff, listen, everybody, go on Amazon and grab the book. It's an amazing read. Especially if you're a Sleepaway Camp fan. Even if you're just a horror fan and you just like, you know, filmmaking, how that works, it's an amazing book to read as well. Jeff, it's been an absolute blast to have you on, man. Definitely got to do it again, man.
Yeah, thank you.
Do it like a live show. No problem. And just talk about Sleepaway Camp. I can do that.
I love talking to Sleepaway Camp fans because they get it. You know, like you
yes,
get
exactly.
You get it.
Yes.
And we're on the same
All right,
wavelength with so many things.
exactly. I'm just saying it's such an underrated. Listen, I've been saying that about the X series. I'm like, those movies are so people are missing out on those fucking movies. Every person
Yep.
watch X and watch Pearl, and if you haven't seen fucking Sleepaway Camp, watch fucking Sleepaway Camp.
Got that
The
right.
first two, I'm not a fan. I'm not the third one. The fucking character just fucking ruins it for me. What's the name?
Cool.
Alan.
Yeah.
Alan. Fuck Alan. Not the actor, the character. I'm sure the actor is a nice guy. All right, everyone. Well, thank you for coming to the Horror Realm. I'm Travis Bruce. I'll see you guys next time. Take care.